So this video is going to go over the basics of using the Kendo grid if you're using the open source software, which I'm using because I'm interested in how it works, but I don't have the big money to pay for the commercial version. I've made a video previously, I should say, about how to use the open source Kendo UI with Visual Studio 2010, and if you go to Google and you type in these keywords, the first thing that pops up is that video. So if you haven't set up Visual Studio 2010 yet, then you can't do this video. Do this first, takes a couple minutes, and then come back and watch this video and be amazed. So, like I said, Visual Studio 2010, Kendo open source, we're going to do the basics of the Kendo grid, just the basics. So here is our project. It's the default MVC that you get, and I'm going to remove everything. And with a clean slate, let's make sure it's a clean slate. I'll probably have this logo stuff, but basically clean. Maybe it's time for a new computer. Huh. What did I leave lying around? Oh. I don't practice this before I start. I don't know if that's apparent or not. Perhaps I should edit out the boring loading part. Okay, so we took everything out, or at least the guts of it. Now, in order to use, well, one strategy anyway for using the Kendo grid is to make a div, give it a name, something amazing like grid, give it a style, just so height of, I don't know, 300 pixels, and a width of, let's say 80%, for lack of anything better. I'm going to use an old-fashioned center tag here. And so if we take a look at what we got now, we should have a big open spot here, about 300 pixels high. Yeah, there it is. We can't see it. Okay, we're going to turn this div into a Kendo grid. Super easy. Make a script tag. And we do a little jQuery here. If jQuery freaks you out because it looks kind of weird, I'm with ya. It is a little bit weird, but work with it. You'll get used to it. What all this is saying here is that don't run this function until the entire document object model has loaded. And when it has loaded, then do this function. And that function happens to be some more jQuery. And this jQuery means find the thing named grid. That's what this hashtag means. And when you find that thing, apply this Kendo grid to it. Now the Kendo grid has all sorts of things we can do at this point, but the idea here is to keep it super simple. So, keeping it simple, let's just add a few columns. We'll add columns, and now we're using a different kind of buzzword. We're using JSON notation, JSON or JSON or whatever you want to call it. So the field is, and I'm just using old first name, last name foolishness, and the title, in other words, the words across the column in our grid. I should probably put a comma in here. Did I mention I don't practice? Let's add a couple more. So I'll have a last name, as you can imagine. And the title is last name. And that's the end of that one. And we'll add one more, just for laughs. like a zip code, right? What good person data doesn't have a zip code? So if you're kind of new to all this computer stuff, or you're just saying, hey, I would like to learn how to do some web apps and stuff, Kendo's a good place to jump in. Well, I've already thrown jQuery and JSON at you. Sorry about that. But it's really not that hard. And if it doesn't make any sense, just follow my example a few times until it does make sense. Okay, so this bracket closes off this bracket, and this bracket, here's the hard part about jQuery, closes off this bracket and that parenthesis, and then we got this bracket and this parenthesis. Whew. Alright, what did we do? Let's review. We created a div and named it grid, and then we wrote some jQuery here. When the document object model finally loads, run this function, and the function is find the element named grid, throw the Kendo grid in there, and give it these columns. Let's see if that actually worked. That would be cool if that really worked on the first try. Cool. See, first name, last name, zip code. It even looks nice. We didn't have to do anything except add a little scripting, right? Okay, you say, wow, so that's kind of cool, but I want to see some data. Okay, I'll put some data in, but that's as far as we're going with this one. We're not going crazy. Plus, I want to make more videos. Don't want to use up all my material at once. So here's our Kendo grid. Let's add some data. So data source. And once again, this is kind of JSON-y. Remember, we have these different fields, so the first name is, I'm sorry, that's bad. Don't put a quote there. First name is Tom, because that's me. And the last name is Lynch. And my zip, in case you're ever wanting to visit. Actually, I have to call it zip code, since that's what we said, is 32256. Duval. And there you go. So, of course, when you're doing this for real, you're not going to put your data, hard code your data into your grid probably, but this is a warm-up, right? So Kendo grid has a data source. In this case, our data source, I've actually specified it. Put it in that JSON format, just like everything else. Hopefully I got all my commas and brackets and braces and quotes all correct. Let's find out. Reload the page. Nothing. Okay, let's find out why nothing. Quote. Do you know why nothing? It's this reason right here. It's not lowercase s, it's capital S. That's why programming drives me nuts. Let's try it again. Boom. I totally meant to do that. Lowercase, uppercase s. So, there you go. That's all there is. Once you get Visual Studio set up, and that takes a couple minutes, to move all the correct files over. Yeah, pretty straightforward. I made a grid. I made a div, and then threw this Kendo grid in it. Success. Look forward to more videos where I use more interesting data sources. Thanks.